Hey, Zach here from Frontenac Outfitters Canoe and Kayak Center. Well, it's the middle of winter. It's cold out. It's cold in the shop. What better way to shake off those winter blues than chatting about kayaks instead of actually kayaking? Let's talk about one of my favorite kayaks. This is the Zegul Play Series. This one specifically we're looking at is the HV. But honestly, the specs don't change a whole lot when we go from the HV to the MV to the LV. So a little connotation as to what that LV, MV, and HV mean are basically the volume sizes of the specific kayak. So the LV is a low volume, the MV is a medium volume, and the HV is an H volume. Easiest way to think about it is kind of a small, medium, large. The Play Series, this is a great kayak for multiple reasons. You know, if I had to choose kind of one sea kayak to do everything, this would probably be my boat of choice. While not a true play boat in the sense that it's like a 15-foot surf machine, it can certainly handle surf really well. Given the length that sits around 17 feet between all three models, they're all kind of within a couple inches of each other. It actually tours really well, has enough gear capacity in it to go out for a week, obviously depending how much stuff and how much luxury items you want to take, but you can definitely pack quite a bit of gear into this series of kayaks. As always, let's start off here at the bow. We'll go through some of the features, work our way down to the stern, talk about some of the specs, some of the things that I really like about it. So starting off at the bow, what you'll find on a lot of sea kayaks is this toggle. We like to refer to it as a swim toggle. So if you ever find yourself out of your kayak, moving to the bow or stern, ideally having one of these guys here on some type of bungees handy to keep them retracted on the deck. But really you can hold on to this so you're in the water, you can move the kayak around and have a safe place to grab onto it without having to be right up next to it. Can you use it as a carry handle? Sure. I don't really recommend it. You know, these are expensive kayaks, and over time, these ropes will wear out. And one day you'll find that kayak may just fall out from underneath you. And this is going to go for all kayaks without a dedicated heavy duty carry handle. So you can use it to pick up the kayak. Obviously, you know, scoop your arm underneath, whatever, use it as a carry handle at your own discretion. Coming back a little further, we have like this really kind of beautifully tapered deck line on it, really sharp entry angle. So it's going to cut through, you know, any chop or waves really, really easily. There's a significant amount of rocker on this boat, you know, enough that it surfs well without kind of diving in and broaching. The way that the bow here flares out works really well for touring, but also for, you know, those kind of play and surfing conditions. Coming a little bit further back, we have our recessed deck hardware. This helps hold down our deck lines, some of our bungee strap, etc. It's nice having this recess, you know, so they're a little more flush bound onto the surface of the kayak and just creates a really good grip around that rope. They are glassed into place, so they can be replaced if you ever find that you know, one's broken or that type of thing. These guys come with a reflective perimeter line, which I think is a great feature. Obviously, if your kayak doesn't have reflective perimeter line, it can be something that you can change out to. Coming a little further back, we got this handy little guy here. So this is our kind of our paddle park, and this little ball here, we can actually just ring a paddle underneath of it really quickly. So if we're in a situation where we need to kind of secure our paddle really quickly, I can just take my paddle and whoop, right underneath that line really efficiently, really quickly, and then I can have my hands free and know that my paddle is pretty secure. Option for a recessed deck compass here. So the Silva P70 fits really well into this kayak. I love having a recessed deck compass on my kayak, having it up far enough out of the way that makes it, you know, really easy to see when I'm out paddling without kind of having to take my eyes off the horizon and that type of thing. You will have to drill a couple holes to mount that properly. Not super scary. It's something that we can offer to do for you here at the shop, but something that honestly is really easy to do at home. If you have any questions about that, you know, honestly, feel free to reach out. We're happy to kind of walk you through the process. Really simple though. Our front hatch is going to be a 10-inch round hatch. So the nice thing about round hatches is they are very watertight. This is a Kayak Sport hatch cover and rim, you know, one of the best in the industry as far as, you know, durability, waterproof. They are secured here with a tether into the boat. So if you're on the water and I've got a friend coming in to get my hatch, these guys don't float. So if you pop this off and go to set it off the side and it blows off, well, your hatch is gone. So having it tethered to your kayak, I think, is absolutely, you know, paramount. So if you have a kayak that doesn't have these on there, get them tied to your boat ASAP. Lots of volume in here. We can pack a ton of stuff into this bow. There is a lot of room inside of this. We've got a solid bulkhead right here. This particular model is done in the 3D C-Core carbon Kevlar layup. So we have a fiberglass deck, and then we have a carbon Kevlar hull with the 3D C-core material on the outside to add some strength and some structure. And we'll have a look at what that looks like, because there's nothing else on the market like it, and it looks absolutely amazing. Going further back, we've got our standard bungee rigging here. So, you know, if you need to keep a map case, some water, whatever, up on the deck, you've got lots of places here to secure that up onto the deck. Coming a little further back, we've got another, what I think is an awesome feature. More manufacturers start to implement this. Zegul's been doing it for a long time with this series of kayaks, which is kind of the glove box, as we like to call it, the little day pod here. Not a huge amount of room inside of here, but we can easily fit maybe a small camera, phone, VHF radio, some snacks. There's plenty of room in here. You know, my hand goes way back in there, so there is quite a bit of space for kind of having those small items that you want to have at the ready that maybe you don't want on your PFD or have to put into your day hatch behind your seat. So coming a little bit further back now on the kayak, we get into the cockpit area. So we have our Skeg control here. A note on that, this kayak, we order them in specifically just with Skegs. It is available in a combination to have a Skeg and a rudder. I feel like on a kayak like this though, you know, the rudder is redundant and isn't really needed or hold a lot of value for a particular design like this. The Skeg works awesome. It trims really easily, holds its position well. So I would suggest, you know, just utilizing a Skeg on this particular style of kayak. Our cockpit rim here is glass with integrated thigh hooks on here. So they work really well, holding you in place. There isn't a whole lot of adjustment, but you can customize the foam fit in there by adding a bit more mini cell foam, maybe taking some away. You know, some of this custom fitting is something that we need to do in a lot of premium sea kayaks to get that custom fit if that's what you're looking for. The skirt size on this, so the opening here is going to use what used to be a custom 1.3, but our friends at Seals have actually started making this a regular size in their inventory, so we won't have to pay that customization fee anymore, which is awesome. Our seat is a fiberglass pan seat with a little bit of foam on here. You know, a lot of people don't think it looks super comfy. Honestly, it works really well. I don't want or need a big comfy seat in my sea kayak. You lose a lot of efficiency by putting, you know, a lot of padding like we would maybe find in a recreational kayak that's really designed for comfort. These are designed for performance and efficiency. So by putting a rigid seat and a rigid backband in, we don't lose any of that power through our stroke and through our body. It transfers directly into the hull of the kayak, pushing us through the water instead of being absorbed into the cushions of the boat. The backband here is a rigid backband. There is a little bit of adjustability. We would have to get some tools out to make some adjustments here. We can kind of pivot it, move it back and forth, that type of thing. It doesn't have that immediate, easy customization, but honestly, I've messed with a couple of different backbands in this kayak, and this one is my favorite. It works really well. Once you have it set up right for your body and where you like to sit, it really holds you in place. You know, if you're into doing rolling or practicing your self-rescues or your assisted rescues, this does not get hung up when you're getting back in the kayak. You slide in, that seat is exactly where you need it to be, and you're locked right back into the boat. Other backrests I've played with can sometimes get folded up underneath you. Kind of just get in the way. The ratchets can come undone, and now I got to mess with getting a ratchet back together to reassemble my backband in the middle of the water. You know, if I'm in conditions, that's not going to be an easy thing to do. So having this, you know, set up properly it's awesome. It works really, really well. Inside the cockpit, we have our foot pegs. They're adjustable. They're on a slide track system, really easy to adjust. They lock into place really easily. There is ways that you can secure them if you find that, you know, they might jump out of place if you're paddling in rough waters. If you are, you know, a conditions paddler, super easy to do. You can just kind of lock them out with a zip tie or a small screw, and those foot pegs will not move. Not much room behind the seat here, which is good and bad. Some people like to have a bit of storage behind their seat for things they may need on the water. The disadvantage with that, though, is when we have a bulkhead here, if we need to drain the water out, it tends to get collected in here when we flip the kayak up to drain the water out. So we have a tapered, angled bulkhead here so that when we're draining the water out of the kayak, it all kind of hits against here, comes out of the kayak really easily, really cleanly. So as we come a little bit further back here behind the cockpit, we have what we would call our day hatch. This guy here, nice little 8-inch round, easy access. You can just kind of turn around behind you, pop that lid, and gain access into this hatch here. This is amazing for being on the water, having I mean, a ton of space for whatever you may need to have with you. Rescue kit, first aid kit, lunch, water, an extra parka to go over top of you if in case it gets windy and rainy. You know, anything that you might need to have with you during the day, you can probably get into this guy here. So honestly, I would never go back to a kayak that doesn't have at least 3 compartments. Again, sealed bulkhead here on this side, separating these guys. So if you do have an unfortunate accident when you're out on the water and this guy's open, well, you might lose some stuff out of here, but it's not going to flood out your entire kayak, which is what we want. There's a bit of bungee rigging here behind us as well, so we can attach our paddle float or whatever. I don't generally keep much behind me on my kayaks, but it's there if you need it. Again, we've got full perimeter deck lines around the outside behind the kayak as well. Really important. Again, if we're in a situation where we're in the water or we're helping a friend out, having these, secure deck lines is going to make a world of difference for maneuvering around that kayak and getting them back in their boat quickly and safely. Coming back a little further, on the stern, we have an oval deck hatch. I believe this one is about 16 by 9. I can't remember the exact dimensions. This is a Kayak Sport oval hatch. Oval hatches do have a tendency to leak maybe a little bit more than round ones. So really important that you get the fitment right when you're putting it back on, that you line it up and it's not kind of crooked to get the best seal. The advantage of an oval one though is this is so much easier to pack than having another small round hatch. I can get my tent in here, I can get my poles in here, cooking gear, that type of thing, and pack it accordingly. And it just makes a world of difference having an oval hatch on the back of the kayak. On my touring boat, I have oval hatches on the front and back. I've never had any issues with them. I know some people say, oh, they leak a little more. Mine have always been bone dry, so I don't know. Maybe I'm doing something right. Maybe I'm just lucky. But oval hatches, especially these Kayak Sport ones, are fantastic. A bit more bungee down here at the back if we wanted to maybe have a spare paddle on the back. Generally, I will put mine on the bow, but you do have this option here to maybe attach the some last bits of gear that they wouldn't be within reach from you for in the cockpit. But if you need that extra storage space, there are some extra bungee tie downs on the back here. Lastly, we have our swim toggle on the stern. Again, same idea as the front. If we're in the water, we can use that to help swim the kayak around and direct it where we want to go. You will see on these guys that we do have these nubs on the stern, and these would have been for rigging up the rudder system. So there's no rudder on this boat, but because they come out of the same mold, they have the inserts there for the rudder system. So that's about it for the features on the deck of the kayak. Some things you might notice with the design of these kayaks is these are what we would call a Danish design. So they take inspiration from both a traditional Greenland design kayak, which Zegul's done some beautiful pure Greenland kayaks, and also some inspiration from some British designs. So we have a very voluminous bow at the front. So we've got a lot of volume in the front, makes a really comfortable boat compared to a Greenland kayak, because you've got a lot of room in that cockpit. We've got more storage space in the bow, and we can also get over waves and surf a lot easier because we have that extra volume in the bow. So it really wants to kind of ride up high up in the front, which is great. And then we kind of taper down, feels like it gets skinnier in the stern here, less volume, very low volume in the back, which is nice. It rolls really easily. It edges really easy. It's a really easy boat to control while still being really narrow and maintaining a lot of speed. So I don't know, it makes for a really unique looking kayak compared to our traditional ones. And it makes just for a really fun and lively kayak to paddle. We'll flip it over and we have a look at the hull and talk about some of the materials that are used to construct that. So this is the 3D Secor carbon Kevlar model. And this is what we talk about, that 3D Secor. I don't know what it's made out of. It's like space material. It's really cool. It changes color under these kind of shop lights. It's not going to give you kind of the best indication of what it looks like. But when you get this stuff in the sunlight, it changes colors from golds to greens. It is an absolutely amazing looking material. Really stiff, incredibly structurally strong. Adds a little bit of protection into the hull and a little bit of stiffness so that if, take an impact. And I've paddled, this isn't my kayak, this is one of our demos, but I've paddled my play in the St. Lawrence out on the East Coast, and I wasn't kind to it. I was running through the rock garden, surfing like crazy, having a good time, and I wasn't purposely trying to smash it into rocks, obviously, but rocks definitely made its way in my way, and it held up really well. no holes, no punctures. Not saying that won't happen, because at the end of the day, it is a carbon boat. So, you want to take an extra bit of caution with it. It's not a polyethylene kayak, but for all intents and purposes, I was really impressed with how well it held up. We've got full carbon on the outside of the kayak here. Our inside laminate layer is going to be a carbon Kevlar, so we're getting kind of that, benefit of having the flexibility of the carbon Kevlar, the stiffness of the carbon on the outside, and the weight savings as well, which is another big thing we haven't got into, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So coming here through kind of our main section of the kayak, we have our 3D C-Core material. So we've got a layer of carbon Kevlar on the inside again, layers of composite material in between there, and then we've got our 3D C-Core layer on the outside, and they managed to just seamlessly kind of get these guys to merge together. There's absolutely no indicator of any lumps or bumps as that material switches from one to the other. You can see from the design of this kayak, we have a nice amount of rocker on the bow and stern. A bit of a shallow V coming in here to about the midsection, where it starts to plane out or flatten out into what we would call a bit of a planing hull. And again, this is going to be kind of our surf hull. Our chines on the side here are pretty aggressive, so we have a hard chine boat, which creates like a rail. So when we get this guy up on its edge on a surf wave, it's going to carve really, really well, and give us a really good experience when we're out surfing on waves. Combine that with the long length of the boat. So surfing big green waves is an absolute dream with this boat. It catches, those big waves really, really well. Maybe not necessarily a true rock gardening boat, because you're going to want something shorter, a little more maneuverable for that. And I'd probably want to be looking at a poly boat for that anyway. But for surfing, nice breaks that have a decent amount of space between them, or even waves that the shorter boats are going to have a hard time getting on. This thing here is going to catch almost anything, and it's going to give you a really fun experience. Fairly narrow, I believe. These guys here, between the LV, MV, and HV, they all kind of sit in the same width. You're around that 21 inch-ish, give or take, half an inch. So a fairly narrow boat, as far as, kind of kayaks go in the sea kayak world. And what that lends itself to is being fairly quick. It's responsive, so it's gonna, edge really, really well. The primary stability, it feels pretty good. The secondary stability, again, it feels pretty good. And that can be a little deceiving on a hard chine boat. So if you're a newer paddler, this might be a little bit much to chew off, because those hard chines can be a little deceiving in how, it feels really good on its secondary edge, and then all of a sudden you're upside down. So maybe a little less forgiveness there, but what you get is increase in responsiveness. So it carves really well, it edges really well, and it's really responsive to the inputs that we put into it from our body. Pretty much the same at the stern. We're gonna have those carbon ends on the stern, just like we do here on the bow. We have our Skeg slot there. You can deploy the Skeg here so you can see how deep it is. So it's a moderate Skeg. It sticks out, I'd say about 5 inches. A decent amount of Skeg. It's located, kind of in that back 3/4-ish of the boat. So it's going to get a lot of contact with the water when we are paddling out in conditions and actually need that Skeg to help kind of control the direction of the kayak. The Skeg does use a wire Skeg system, so it's on a bit of like an aviation cable throughout. There's pros and cons to that system. Much like everything. The pros are it's rugged. It holds up over time. It holds its place. It can be repaired if needed. The downside is they can be prone to jamming. So a metal Skeg system, they've been used for ages, but what can happen is if we take an impact on something while that Skeg is down, it can cause that cable to maybe jam up and kink a little bit, and then all of a sudden your Skeg isn't going to be operational anymore. It's going to need a bit of repair. Generally, if that's the case, you can still deploy them. If you can reach in there, maybe tie a string to there might be a little hole in there. You can tie a string so you can still pull it, have somebody pull it down with you if you're on a longer trip and you need to do that and you don't have the means to be able to repair it out in the field. But a pretty easy to repair to do in the off season. The rocker on this guy here, I would say it's a moderate rocker. It's not super aggressive. There's enough rocker there that it certainly makes it maneuverable, but not enough rocker to make it unpaddleable on calm days. If we have a boat that has a lot of that banana shape, it is going to be not a great experience on calm water because it just wants to kind of go all over the place. It'll be slower, and it's just, you know, less fun on those days. And that's why I really like the Play series, the Zegul Play series, as kind of a one quiver style boat, because it has just enough rocker that it's really playful, but, you know, not such an aggressive amount of rocker that it is unruly on flat water or paddling on calm days. I think that's all I got to say about the hull. So the Zegul Play series, available in 3 different sizes, available in a couple different styles of layups. So like we said, this is the 3D C core. It's also available in what's called the A core, which is a high performance fiberglass. And it's also available in a full carbon layup. So the deck and the hull would be carbon. Weight ranges, we're gonna be looking anywhere from say 35 to about 50 pounds, depending on the layup and the size of the kayak. Available in multiple colors. These are beautiful kayaks. We custom order every one with different color schemes. You can custom order yours as well. These guys do take some time to produce custom colors. So generally there's gonna be, you know, anywhere from 6 months to about a year lead time on getting a custom color boat. They're produced in Estonia, so it takes some time for those logistics to happen. But it is definitely something we can facilitate for you. For the full range of specs on the Zegul Play series, have a look at the website, frontenacoutfitters.com. If you wanna test paddle one of these, well, in season, we do test paddling 7 days a week, so we'd love to have you come on out and visit us. For any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks a lot for watching. Man, I miss paddling.